I've had two different Orangewood Morgan Mahogany Live acoustic guitars at this point because the first one I received was a defective piece of trash. I will touch on that one as needed, but the main objective for this video is actually the replacement guitar that I have now owned and played for just over 9 months. That's this one right behind me here, and I will link down in the description to the previous Orangewood videos I did make talking about my overall buying experience if you're interested in hearing more about that. The setup of the nut was totally rushed. The slots were a mess. The strings were binding up quite a bit, and this was actually the case on both of the guitars I received. And it was just not an isolated incident. It felt way too familiar on this one. And it unsurprisingly caused a good amount of tuning instability. The tuners overall, though, are actually pretty decent, so a proper setup could have easily prevented these issues. It's just Orangewood sabotaged themselves with their own ignorance, and it's honestly just stupid. I don't know. The saddle was also set up a bit high. Intonation was within a tolerable range on most strings, but a couple were playing a bit sharp, and this was also a common issue on both of the guitars. I truly feel like Orangewood uses a one-size-fits-all approach to all of these professional setups that they do on these guitars. I just really am not sold on the fact that they 100% know what they're doing. I think they get lucky sometimes, but other times clearly not so much. My main saddle complaint, though, was actually mostly in the low quality of the bone material itself, and that was actually the same deal with the nut too. Both of them were just cheap junk, and I feel like they probably just cut the corner here so they could say that they used bone without actually paying for quality materials. And it really put a negative hit on the tone, which I initially blamed solely on the strings. And after replacing those, I was happy to hear a slight improvement going from the stock 80/20 bronze strings to the Phosphor bronze that I put on there. But overall, the sound was still pretty underwhelming. 2 months ago, I ended up replacing both the nut and saddle with Graph Tech TUSQ. And this did make an extremely noticeable improvement in the tone. I'm still not completely blown away by the sound of my guitar in its current state. However, I'm reasonably satisfied with it for the money I have now put into it. I'm also not at all a fan of these onboard Fishman Sonotone electronics they have installed. The equalization control is pretty bottom basic. The biggest problem here, though, is actually the sound output being annoyingly uneven. Some of the strings sound all right, while others are noticeably more quiet. And both the original bone and my upgraded TUSQ saddles have had the exact same issues. So it's almost as if the cavity of the bridge itself was routed improperly at the factory, but I'm not entirely sure. There's no way I could ever plug in direct for any kind of performance with this either, not even a casual open mic. It just honestly would not sound good. The guitar would have to be mic'd up to achieve an acceptable sound. And that basically renders the onboard electronics useless. I mean, it's almost as if they just included them to raise the price of the guitar. Once again, I'm just kind of shaking my head wondering, like, what were they thinking here? I don't know. My main gripe about the modifications I had to make is that if I would have known the guitar would arrive with such setup issues, I would have never made the purchase from them in the first place. With everything they claim on their website, you shouldn't have to do any of this basic setup stuff yourself. The fact that I'm personally capable of taking care of these types of things is irrelevant, in my opinion, because some people might not be able to perform these types of adjustments and repairs in some cases, and some just, on the other hand, might not want to deal with it. And Orangewood's careful setup by professional technicians for such a low price is what won me and many other people, I'm sure, over to begin with. So let me step back to the first guitar for just a second. The first one I received had a completely stripped out truss rod. Customer service initially tried to mansplain to me that I must have not known what I was doing, and they even proceeded from there to accuse me of not using the correct size Allen wrench when I was like totally using the one they provided me with when they sent the guitar. They even were trying to be like, oh yeah, all kinds of weird stuff happens in shipping. Well, the truss rod doesn't get stripped out in shipping. I think one of their professionals might have been so rough with it that they ragged it out, or worst case scenario, I might have even been sent someone else's return unit from the wrong pile. I don't know. One thing that popped up after about 6 months was a bit of fret sprout. And other guitars that I've had for a lot longer and stored even in the exact same room have never even had fret sprouting at all. So I'm not sure if I just got 2 lemons in a row, but man, that's a hell of a coincidence if I did. I'm thinking probably not. A lot of people love Orangewood guitars because they either ordered one and got really lucky, or I feel like many people just have drank the Kool-Aid and are going to think these guitars are awesome no matter what because they've been told that they're awesome. You know, they see a YouTube video from a person they're familiar with and they're like, man, I trust him. He knows what he's talking about. So anybody who doesn't like these guitars must be a liar or an asshole or something. I don't know. I even have had a few people like seriously come to my channel and tell me that their negative reviews have mysteriously vanished from Orangewood's website. And that's almost some crazy conspiracy theory stuff, which I wouldn't believe had I not had conversations with people about this. I just don't like this company. Everything about them rubs me the wrong way. And I know I kept my replacement guitar when I didn't have to, but honestly, at that point, I was just tired of dealing with the whole thing. And as I mentioned before, I will link in the description for you to check out my other Orangewood content if you're interested. And in the Orangewood playlist there are quite a few performance videos on this channel using this Morgan Mahogany Live guitar. And I will mention though, with like an asterisk, most of them have been majorly EQ'd in post. That is with the exception of the last few since I have swapped in the TUSQ nut and saddle. Those ones, the audio is untouched, and I believe I started uploading those in January of 2021. So if you pay attention to the upload dates, you will hear a difference probably in the audio.
Boom. Roasted.
Yeah. Nice.